Hey, hello everyone. My name is Eric Maslowski, and in this tutorial we're going to be continuing the 101 series and looking at how we can build up a few 3D objects using splines or shapes. So let's get started. So if we go over to Create Shapes, and let's say we just create a very simple circle. Alright, so you can see right now that this circle doesn't have any surface to it. You can see right through it to the grid. If we jump over to the Modify panel and apply an Extrude Modifier to it, you can see that it immediately becomes kind of like a disc, very flat disc. Now we can adjust the amount on the right hand side, and this is just basically the height that this shape or this object will take. If we turn on our edges for our object by pressing F4, you can see the geometry as it's broken down. If we increase the number of segments, you can see how much detail we're adding here. You can also choose to cap the top and what kind of cap we want to use. If we use a morph cap, this is pretty much one large polygon. If we use a grid cap, it actually breaks it down into a lot of individual rectangles. And then we can choose what kind of output we want from this. We can choose to do NURBS, patch, or mesh. Okay, so let's delete this modifier and take a look at another one. So we click on the drop-down list and choose Bevel. Now this one is very similar to Extrude, but it gives us a few more options. If we scroll down to the bottom where it says Bevel Values, and we first specify the start outline to make sure that it's 0. That means that we don't want it to change its shape at the bottom. Then, for level 1, we specify the height of level 1 and the scale of our shape at that point. We can now activate level 2, go to height, give it some more, and we're going to actually leave the outline the same. Then we're going to go to level 3, activate that one, bring that up a little bit, and then bring it in. Okay, so what we have here is we have the ability to create a much more complex shape than just a single height value will get us. Now one thing to notice is that you can also go negative with your height values, so you can make cuts into your object or recessions into your object. So very, very neat stuff. Now say you don't want this hard edge going all the way around. What we can do is we can click on curved sides. Now currently it's only set to one segment, meaning that there will only be one segment from there to there. So if we increase this, you can see how it starts to smooth the object out. Of course, at the cost of additional geometry. But if we have this at a decent value of 9 or 10, and we now play with our settings, we can get a much clearer idea of what kind of object we're creating. And so this allows for a lot of flexibility and a lot of playing. It's just a lot of fun working in this way. Okay, so if we just take a look at this a little bit closer, you can see that there's a little bit of a seam here. This is just because there are two different smoothing groups between these two. And all you need to know is if you want to get rid of this seam, you can click on Smooth Across Levels, and then it's looking much better. Okay, so let's actually take a look at how compound objects respond to, or compound shapes respond to these two modifiers. So if we delete our modifier again, go back over to our Create tab, make sure we have our circle selected, turn off Start New Shape, and let's create another circle right in the middle of it. Okay? move back over to the Modify panel, click on the drop-down list, and apply an Extrude Modifier. You'll notice that it now viewed that shape. See, it viewed the center part as a whole, and this is completely solid. So you can use this feature to create a fairly complex object. So if, again, we go back to our crate, let's just say we create a bunch of little holes all the way around. Now we jump back over to the Modify panel, apply an Extrude Modifier, and there we go. Pretty nice and complex shape fairly quickly. Now, let's take a look at what happens when we use the Bevel modifier. So if we delete our Extrude and go to Bevel, it keeps our settings from last time. So we get this pretty bizarre shape going on here. But let's reset everything back to 0. And we can do that quickly by just right-clicking on these little spinners and then turning off the additional levels. Okay, so let's first define the height. Now watch what happens as I increase the outline. Those objects get very small. Or if I increase it, look what happens when those circles get larger than that top surface. It gets really crazy and objects and faces start turning inside out. What we can do is we can tell Max to keep the lines from crossing one another. So as I decrease the outline, you can see the type of shape it's creating. And so that alone is actually a pretty cool shape that you can get just by exploiting, the keep lines from separating, or keep lines from crossing, and the outline option. We can now turn on additional levels if we want. Extend it up. And also adjust their settings. So we can say bring that in now. And then add a final one. Go like that. So you can see you can create some pretty complex shapes just by knowing how the bevel and the extrude work. Okay, so now let's take a look at one more option for taking a spline and turning it into a 3D object. So let's delete our object and go back to our nice 4 views. Okay, so let's go over to Create Shapes. Let's create a star in our top viewport. And actually, let's adjust it so the spikes aren't quite as severe. Let's go over to Line, switch over to our front viewport. And then let's make kind of like the outline of a vase. Right click when done to stop the line. Okay, so here we have a star and kind of like this outline of how we want the star shape to go. So if we select our star by first hitting escape on the keyboard to get out of line mode, click on the star, go over to the Modify panel, and this time choose a Bevel Profile modifier. Now what we're going to be doing here is we're going to be using this spline or this single line right here to define kind of like the scaling of this star shape. So if we go and click Pick Profile, click on it, you can see it created and scaled our shape to try to match this profile. Now the reason why it doesn't match exactly is you notice that this orange gizmo in the middle, this is what it's rotating around, or this is what it's using as its scale. So we click on the drop down list, go to Profile Gizmo, drag it out. We may also need to rotate it or position it if we want it to be identical. See, as I rotate it, the effect changes as well. Now, one other thing that may happen is you may find out that your profile isn't exactly right, okay? And you want to go back and modify the shape that it creates. One of the really nice things about Max is that the modifier stack isn't destructive. So you can jump back over to your line, click on vertex, click on one of these, and then just start modifying your shape to get what you need. And so you can also jump down to star here and adjust various options, such as the radius, the number of points, and how much distortion is done, so how much twist is applied to the center. And so you can do a lot of really cool things just by playing with all these options that we have. So here we get a really unique shape going on, and very, very quickly too. Okay, so that'll do it for this tutorial. If you have any questions, feel free to email me or post on the forums. In the next tutorial, what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at two more methods for taking splines or shapes and turning them into 3D objects. Namely, we'll be going over lofts and sweeps. Okay, so thank you for listening. Bye.